You've heard of ancient Egypt, but you've never lived it. Not in temples or thrones, but in the dust, the heat, the silence. As one of the millions whose names were never written, and never meant to be. Long before our calendars and clocks, there was only the Nile. It did not just give water, it gave rhythm. The river rose, flooded, and fell again, like breath, like sleep, like time. And every breath of the Nile decided who would eat and who would starve, who would work the fields and who would carry stones until their backs broke. In ancient Egypt, life was not fast. It was not filled with decisions or ambitions. It moved like the river, slowly, predictably, endlessly. And for most, it never strayed far from where they were born. Most Egyptians were poor, not in the modern sense, but in a deeper way. Bound to the land, bound to the sun, bound to the gods. They lived in houses made of mud brick, under roofs of palm leaves. Their beds were mats. Their food was bread, beer, and whatever the river allowed. Their clothing was linen, if they were lucky, or nothing at all, if the season was cruel. Children didn't go to school. They learned by watching, by imitating. A son watched his father shape clay or sow barley. A daughter watched her mother grind grain or soothe a crying baby. There were no grades, no lectures, just the quiet repetition of survival. The air was dry and full of sand. It stung the eyes. It cracked the skin. Flies buzzed in the heat. Dogs barked from alleyways. The gods were always watching, or so it was believed. Ma'at, the goddess of truth and balance, kept the world from falling into chaos. And to disturb that balance was to risk both your life and your afterlife. You didn't dream of wealth. You dreamed of a peaceful death, a proper burial, a heart that weighed less than a feather. You dreamed that Anubis would guide your soul through the darkness, and that Osiris would grant you entry into the fields of eternity. But those dreams belonged mostly to the rich, to scribes, to priests, to those whose names were written. For the rest, the farmers, the brickmakers, the washerwomen, life was short, silent, and anonymous. They were born, they worked, they died, and the river flowed on, unmoved. You wake to the sound of insects, a soft hum, like breath against your ear. The sky is still dark, but the air is already warm. It will be a hot day. You can feel it in the earth beneath your mat. Your home is made of clay and time. It leans slightly to one side, like everything here. Your mother is already awake. You hear her grinding barley by the doorway. Your younger brother sleeps beside you, curled into himself, dreaming of gods or goats. You sit up slowly. The linen wrap around your waist is stiff with dust. There's a shallow bowl of water by the door. You splash your face, rub the grit from your eyes, and blink at the rising light. Your father is gone. He left before sunrise to work on the canal. There are no walls between you and the world, only shade and hope. You follow your mother toward the river. She carries a small basket. You carry a larger one, though it feels heavier in the heat. The walk is long but familiar. Past the neighbors' huts, past the woman who lost her teeth but still laughs, past the quiet child with the painted doll made of wood. The Nile comes into view like a god you're not allowed to speak to. Wide, quiet, watching. You kneel beside your mother as she scoops water into a clay jar. You dip your fingers in, feel the mud between your toes. You look up, and something catches your eye. Just beyond the reeds, half buried in wet earth. A shape, smooth, not a stone. You glance at your mother. She's busy with the jar. Your brother is chasing a frog. No one sees. You reach out. It's cold, even in the heat. A small object, flat and oval, covered in fine lines. Not hieroglyphs exactly, but something close. A dark green color, like the deepest part of the river. It's an amulet. You've seen similar ones on the necks of the dead. But this one is different, older, or newer, or something else entirely. You close your hand around it. It fits perfectly in your palm, like it's been waiting there. You turn around. Nobody saw. You drop it into your waistcloth, just under the fold. It presses gently against your hip as you walk. You don't tell your mother, not while she bakes bread in the sun, not while she hums the song of the harvest god. You don't tell your brother, even when he asks why you're so quiet. You just nod, smile, and wait. That night, you dream of water that flows the wrong way, of a voice calling your name, but from beneath the sand, of stars that blink like eyes, and the amulet glows faintly in the dark, though you're sure no one else can see. Tomorrow, you will return to the river, but not as a child. Not quite. When a name is carved into stone, it is meant to last forever. That was the promise of ancient Egypt, to be remembered, to be spoken, to live beyond death. But one name was different. Akhetaten, once a pharaoh, once a god's voice on earth, chose to erase all other names. He closed temples. He silenced priests. He built a new city, Akhetaten, in the desert, facing only the rising sun. He said the old gods were illusions. Only Aten, the sun disk, was real. For nearly 2 decades, Egypt followed his light, not always willingly. And when he died, the light was smothered. His temples were torn down. His name was chiseled from walls. His statues defaced. His legacy buried. They called him the heretic king. And they believed the silence would be enough. But in Egypt, nothing stays buried forever. Not names, not symbols, not truth. The amulet stays hidden. You keep it tucked beneath the folds of your linen wrap, against your skin, where the sun never touches. It presses lightly when you bend, moves slightly when you walk, and sometimes you swear. It hums, not with sound, but with memory. The morning comes like all others. Your mother kneads the bread before dawn, her hands moving slowly, rhythmically, like the grinding of time. Your brother runs after chickens barefoot. A neighbor coughs behind a wall of drying fish. Everything is as it should be, but you are not. You hear things now, or maybe you just notice them, like the way your uncle stopped smiling when he saw the shape under your tunic, or how your friend looked away when you asked about the strange symbol, the one like a sun with reaching arms. You asked him twice. He never answered. Later that day, while collecting reeds by the river, you try carving the shape into the mud. Not carefully, just curious. A circle, lines stretching down, like arms. Each one ends in a hand. Software, reaching, giving. You look at it, and something feels wrong. Not with the shape itself, but with how empty the world around you suddenly feels. You wipe it away before anyone sees. That night, your grandfather tells an old story by firelight. You've heard it before, but it feels different now. He speaks of the sun god Ra, how he sailed the sky by day and fought monsters by night. How the balance of the world, Ma'at, must be protected. How chaos waits beneath everything. But he does not mention Aten. He never has. You whisper the name, just once, to yourself. Aten. It feels like tasting something sour, like a memory that doesn't belong to you. Your mother hears you. Her eyes widen. She hushes you without speaking, and the fire seems colder after that. The next morning, your uncle gives you news. You're going to stay with your cousin in the north, just for a while. He says it quickly, as if he doesn't want the words to linger. They need help in the fields, and you'll learn from new people. You know what this means. You're being sent away, not punished, not banished, just removed. It is a quiet exile. You nod. You do not say goodbye to the amulet, The journey begins on foot. A merchant caravan passes, and you walk alongside it for part of the way. Donkeys clink with bronze bells. Children sleep in baskets tied to backs. The sun above is high and cruel. The dust tastes like old stone. One of the merchants asks your name. You answer politely. Then he asks, "What's that symbol on your wrist?" You freeze. You look down. It's a faint trace, just a smudge of the Aten you drew in the mud yesterday. You must have leaned into it without noticing. You shake your head and wipe it away. The man stares at you for a moment too long, then spits in the sand. You arrive days later at a crumbling outpost near the old road to Akhetaten. They don't call it that anymore. Some say the name brings illness. Others say it never existed at all. Your cousin greets you with indifference. He gives you a blanket, some dates, and points to the corner where you can sleep. "Don't ask questions," he says. You weren't going to, but you can feel the amulet pressing into your side as you lie down, and it feels heavier than it ever has. That night, you wake to the sound of wind. You step outside. The stars above you are sharp and silver. The desert breathes around you, wide and endless. You walk a few paces toward the dunes, and in the distance, almost lost in the shadows, you see a line of broken columns, fallen, silent, half swallowed by sand. You don't know why, but you feel them calling. Not with voice, not with sound, just with presence. Like the amulet. The next morning, you ask an old man what the place used to be. He shrugs. A ruin from the time of the heretic. You ask who that was. He doesn't answer. He just walks away. But later, a younger boy pulls you aside. He had a city, you know, he whispers. All white stone and sunlight. No statues, just the sun. My grandfather says he burned the names of all the gods. Even Amun, you ask what happened to him. The boy shrugs. They erased him, buried his face, broke every wall he touched. Then he leans in close. But some say he had a secret, and he left it behind, somewhere no one dares to look. You say nothing. But that night you press the amulet to your chest, and for the first time, you wonder if you were supposed to find it, or if it was looking for you. There was a city once, carved from white limestone and sunlight. Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten. It rose from the desert like a promise, built not for the people, but for the god of light. Walls were lifted in weeks. Roads were drawn like rays from a center. Temples had no roofs. There were no shadows allowed. Inside its heart stood a palace of open courtyards and wide colonnades. Frescoes of blooming lotuses, golden wheat, and radiant sun discs covered every surface. There were no images of Amun, no shrines to Osiris, no whispers of Thoth, only Aten, the sun itself with rays that reached down to touch the earth. For 17 years, it was the center of the world. Then it was abandoned. No armies attacked. No fires consumed it. The people simply walked away, and the desert took it back. Now, only wind walks its streets, only sand fills its doorways, and the light that once ruled there has no voice. You arrive just past dusk. The sun hangs low, stretching the land into gold and violet. The outpost you left behind is far now, forgotten like a half-remembered dream. You travel with a man who trades pottery, silent, sunburnt, and kind. He does not ask why you wish to see the ruins. He only says, "Don't stay past nightfall." You nod. But in your heart, you know you'll stay. The first thing you see is the stone road, straight as a reed, stretching across the earth. It leads toward what was once Akhetaten, though no one calls it that anymore. The stones are uneven, cracked, pulled apart by time. But they are still here, still leading forward. You follow them. The wind blows softly across the open plain. To your left, dry brush rattles. To your right, nothing but rock. And then, like ghosts rising from the earth, you see the edges of the city. Walls that once stood tall now lean like tired men. Archways sag. Columns split. Everything is quiet, even the air. But you feel something else. A pressure, as though the ground remembers. You step through what was once a great gate. 2 pillars frame you, cracked but proud. No guards, no gods. Only your shadow stretches through them now. Inside, broken buildings sit in silence. The bones of a marketplace, the outline of a garden. You pause before a wall. It still holds colour. Faint, like breath on glass. A painting. You reach out, careful not to touch, and see a sun disk, arms outstretched, hands open toward a family. A man, a woman, children, all bathed in light. Your fingers hover near the stone, and you feel it. Not the warmth of the sun, but the coldness of its absence. Deeper in the city, you pass what remains of a temple. It has no roof. It was never meant to. Light was the ceiling here. You step through fallen columns, watching your feet. Shards of alabaster crunch beneath your sandals. There is no altar. Only a raised platform and a circle of stone. A place where sunlight would strike at noon. You sit there, and though the sky is fading into dusk, you close your eyes and imagine what it once looked like. A priest with shaved head, raising open hands to the sky, chanting not to a statue, but to the open heavens. No incense, no idols, only breath and light. A sound interrupts you, not loud, just soft movement. You open your eyes. Across the temple floor stands a man, old, thin, wrapped in faded linen. He leans on a staff, carved with spiral lines. He watches you, but does not speak. You stand slowly, offer a respectful nod. "Did you live here?" you ask. He smiles, but not with joy. "I worked the walls," he says. "Carved stories no one reads anymore. Painted suns no one sees." You hesitate, then reach under your tunic. Your fingers brush the amulet. You don't take it out. But somehow, he knows. "You found it," he says. Your breath catches. "It finds who it needs," he continues. Like light through cracks. He turns to leave. "Be careful what you follow," he says, walking away. Not all light warms. Some burns. Night falls. You lie in what was once a servant's chamber, under collapsed beams. The stars above are sharp, watching. The amulet rests beside you, dull in the dark. But in your dream, you stand before a door of stone, carved into the side of the earth. It has no handle, no inscription, only a sun, painted in red, with its arms reaching down. And you hear a voice, not loud, but old. "You saw the city. Now see what it hides." Most tombs in ancient Egypt were meant to be hidden. They were carved deep into the earth, behind false doors and winding corridors. They weren't made to be visited. They were made to be forgotten. But the pyramids were different. They stood tall, impossible to ignore. Shapes so perfect they defied time, sky, and memory. Inside them, at first, were kings, surrounded by treasure, by prayers, by walls full of sacred words. But by the time of Akhetaten, the pyramids were already ancient. Old stones, old power. He did not build them. He left them behind. His city had no pyramids, no dark passages, no secrets, only sun. But when the sun was silenced, when Aten was buried, the people returned to stone, to shadow, to silence. And not all doors were sealed again. You wake before sunrise. The city of Akhetaten is still asleep, or what's left of it. The stones are cool under your feet. The air smells like dust and dry flowers. You leave without telling anyone. Not that there's anyone to tell. The old man from the temple is gone, and your guide never returned. You walk along the edge of the ruins, past sun-bleached walls and half-buried pillars. And you search, not for a place you know, but for the place you saw in the dream. The ground slopes downward near a broken platform. Sand has collected in waves. There are no markings, no signs, but your hands know where to press. Your feet know where to stop. You kneel. You brush sand aside with your fingers. Stone reveals itself. Flat, smooth, too clean to be natural. You dig slowly, steadily, until the shape returns. A disc, carved into the rock, with rays, arms reaching downward, just like in the dream. Your breath slows. Your fingers tremble. You press the center of the disc. It does not move, but something clicks. Software deep, forgotten, and a seam appears in the stone. A doorway. You don't open it, not at first. You sit. You wait. The sun rises, casting light across the ruin, and for a moment it touches the door. Not all of it, just the disc. It glows faintly, not magic, just reflection, just timing. But it feels like permission. You stand, push gently. The stone shifts, dust spills from the edges, and the door opens. Inside, silence, and stairs, carved from the earth itself, spiraling down into shadow. You hesitate, but you step forward. The air is cold, cooler than anything above. Your sandals tap against the stone. The amulet rests against your chest, heavier than before. You descend slowly, your hand on the wall. It takes time. Your eyes adjust. Shapes emerge. Symbols, not the usual ones. Not the gods of balance or the spells of the dead. These are older or newer. You don't know, but you recognize the sun and its arms and something else. A figure, not a 10, not Ra. A man, tall, bald, crowned, hands raised not in prayer but in offering to the sun. And the sun responds. You move on. At the base of the stairs, a chamber opens, wider than expected. The ceiling curves like a dome. In the center, a single stone table, empty, but the walls are full. Painted scenes, faint, cracked, but alive. A family under rays of gold, a queen with lotus flowers, a boy held by his father, a king alone looking at the sky. The style is the same as what you saw above, but here, the names are still intact. Akhetaten, Nefertiti, Tutankhaten. Your breath catches. They were never erased here. You kneel before the table. There is no treasure, no gold, no sarcophagus, just a single, shallow indentation in the shape of your amulet. You take it out, hold it in both hands. It feels warm, not hot, not glowing, just alive. You place it in the hollow. A sound, software, mechanical, not magic, just stone moving like it remembers. And the wall behind the table opens. Inside, a narrow hallway, lit only by faint cracks above. Not much to see, but at the end, one last chamber. Inside it, silence deeper than before, and a single figure, not real. A statue, but so lifelike, it makes you pause. It's Akhetaten, thin, elegant, strange. His eyes carved to look upward, not toward you, towards something you cannot see. Behind him, a sun, arms, hands, and beneath it, a message, not in hieroglyphs, but in a simple line of ancient script. If you find me, you already know. You sit in the quiet. You listen. There is no secret spell, no revelation, no hidden power, only the stillness of something left behind, that someone once tried very hard to protect. You stay for hours, then stand, take the amulet, and close the door. No one sees you leave. But the sun does, and for a moment, you wonder if that's enough. To die in ancient Egypt was not the end. It was the beginning of a journey. The heart was weighed, not the body, not the mind, just the heart. balanced against a single feather, the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and order. If the heart was lighter, the soul passed on. If heavier, it was devoured by Amit, a creature part lion, part crocodile, part hippopotamus. This belief shaped everything, every choice, every word, every silence. Ma'at was not just a goddess, she was balance itself. The rising of the Nile, the order of stars, the fairness of judges, the honesty of merchants, the stillness of the tomb. Even the pharaoh ruled only with her permission. And in a time when gods were challenged, when old names were erased and new ones burned, Ma'at watched. She did not speak. She did not punish. She only waited, with her feather in hand. You leave Akhetaten before dawn. No one stops you. The wind carries dust across the stones, covering your footprints as you walk. The amulet is with you. So is the memory. But neither speak. You travel for days, following the river. Palm trees sway. Villages appear and vanish like dreams. You eat dates, drink warm water, sleep under stars that don't blink. People pass by. Some nod. Some look away. You do not talk much. You are still listening to what the silence taught you. Eventually, you reach a larger town, not as broken as Akhetaten, not as loud as Thebes, just alive. Merchants call out from stalls. Children chase birds. Priests walk slowly in white linen. You sit beneath a sycamore tree, watching, and you hear it, a procession, not with trumpets or gold, just a line of people, dressed in pale cloth. They carry something on a stretcher, covered in reeds and flowers, a funeral. You follow, not close, just enough. They bring the body to a small temple. Outside, a priest waits. He holds a single object, a feather, long, white, still. The ritual begins. There is no drama, no spectacle. The priest places a scale on a stone platform. On one side, a model of a heart, carved from clay. On the other, the feather. A boy recites a list of things the dead did not do. He did not lie. He did not steal. He did not strike the innocent. He did not dishonor Ma'at. The list is long, softly spoken, carried like breath into the sky. The priest watches the scale. It does not move, but still, he nods. Balanced, he says. He may pass. You stay after the others leave. The priest remains too. You approach. Is it real? You ask. He looks at you, sees the tiredness in your eyes, the weight in your posture. The feather? He asks. You nod. He holds it up. Not this, he says. This is symbol. But what it means, that's real. You sit beside him. What if someone saw something? Something not meant to be seen? The priest is quiet. Then they must be careful. Some truths belong to the sky, others to the ground, and some to silence. You leave the temple as the sun sets. The river is golden. Birds skim its surface. You take out the amulet. It no longer feels heavy, but it doesn't feel light either. You hold it beside your heart and wonder if it were placed on a scale next to the feather of Ma'at, which would rise and which would fall. To carve a god into stone was to give him breath. That was what the stonemasons believed. In ancient Egypt, stone was memory. More permanent than papyrus, more sacred than speech. Temples, tombs, and statues were covered in carved symbols and painted stories, each one a prayer for eternity. Masons were not just builders. They were keepers of cosmic order. They followed strict rules, using grids to ensure divine proportions. They copied what came before, not from lack of imagination, but out of reverence for balance. Ma'at. Their tools were simple: copper chisels, wooden mallets, polished dolerite. But their hands shaped kings, gods, and myths. They worked in teams. Stonecutters, sculptors, painters. Each figure, each glyph, had to be placed perfectly. Mistakes were not erased. They were never meant to exist. But sometimes the gods changed. And when they did, stone had to forget. When Akhetaten came to power, he rejected Amun and the traditional gods. He closed their temples and built new ones, open-roofed, flooded with sun. He ordered the name of Aten to be carved, painted, and glorified across Egypt. When he died, his vision was dismantled. Amun returned. Aten was denounced, and the stonemasons were asked to undo what they had carved. Some obeyed, some hesitated, some carved new gods over old ones. But stone remembers, even when scraped, even when plastered, even when painted over. There are places in Egypt where sunlight still catches the ghost of a line. A hand once raised to Aten, hidden beneath the face of Amun. And those who carved them never truly forgot. You follow the river south. The land changes, wider, flatter, greener. The cities here are older. They do not carry the silence of Akhetaten. They carry memory. You arrive at a village carved into the edge of the cliffs. It smells of dust, sweat, and stone. The rhythm of chisels echoes across the quarry. Men work in the heat, stripped to their waists. Children carry water in clay jars. Women mix paint from crushed minerals. Red ochre, yellow, green. You keep your head down. You carry buckets, stack tools, clean brushes. No one asks why you are here, and you do not offer. In the evenings, you sit near the fires, listening to stories told with thick hands and tired voices. They talk about gods and floods and lost cities. They speak of kings who changed the sun. You say nothing. One day, as the sun drops behind the cliffs, you see an older mason studying a wall carved deep into a temple's shadow. It curves inward, smooth, clean, too clean. He runs his hand across the surface, not to check for cracks, but for something beneath. You approach slowly. He doesn't turn. What do you see? You ask. He smiles, eyes still on the wall. What I remember? He steps aside, gestures to the stone. Touch it. You place your palm against it. Cool, silent, still, but not empty. Your fingertips find faint ridges, lines buried beneath paint, symbols that don't match the ones above. This was a shrine once, he says, to a god we no longer name. You trace the lines. A disc, rays, small open hands. They covered it in plaster, he continues, then carved Amun over it. But they didn't scrape deep enough. You nod slowly. You've seen this before, in a hidden chamber, in a sealed hallway. Why didn't they finish the erasing? You ask. The mason shrugs. Some said it was dangerous. Some said it was sacred. Some couldn't bring themselves to do it. He looks at you for the first time. His eyes are clear, not accusing, just tired. Stone remembers, he says. You nod. Because now, so do you. In the following days, he shows you more. Behind doors, under paint, in corners where no one looks. A sun disk behind the shoulder of Amun, a pair of hands reaching through a lotus motif, a scratched-out name beneath a fresh prayer. He speaks little. He doesn't need to. Each discovery speaks louder than words, and your amulet, tucked beneath your wrap, never stops its quiet thrum. You begin to understand something. The Aten was not erased, just buried, and some of the masons never stopped carving. Not on temple walls, but in memory, in silence. One evening, beside the fire, he asks you, "What will you do with what you've seen?" You don't answer, not right away. You stare into the flame. You hear the sound of chisels still echoing in your mind. "Nothing," you say at last. He nods. "Good," he says. "Then maybe it will stay alive." The pyramids were not built for the living. They were made for kings to become gods. Their shape pointed to the heavens. Their chambers mimicked the underworld. Their walls whispered the spells of eternity. By the time of Akhetaten, the pyramids were already ancient. The great kings of the past, Khufu, Khafra, Menkaure, rested beneath mountains of stone, surrounded by traps, prayers, and silence. But even pyramids were not immune to time, or to fear. During Akhenaten's rule, focus turned away from pyramids and tombs. The sun became the temple, light the prayer, open air the shrine. But when his reign ended and old gods returned, so did old fears. The pyramids were sealed again, not just with stone, but with silence. And sometimes it wasn't the gods that watched over them, but people. People sworn to protect something that must not be found. You leave the cliffs behind. The hills flatten. The river bends wide. The land opens, vast, empty, golden. And on the horizon, the pyramids rise. Not one, not three, but many. Some sharp, others crumbled. Some rising from sand, others half swallowed by it. You do not walk with a group. You move alone. The wind pulls at your wrap. Dust stings your eyes. But you do not look away. You watch them. And you feel them watching back. You sleep beneath a sycamore near the edge of a village. The locals sell trinkets. Tourists of the afterlife, they call them. You say little, but one man notices your silence. He speaks with missing teeth and careful words. You don't come for stories, he says. You come because something called you. You nod. He nods back. He points to a flat-topped ruin far from the others. Go there. That one is quiet. You go. The walk is long. You pass stones shaped by tools and walls with no names. You find the ruin before dusk. It is small but solid. There is no entrance, just a crack near the base. You kneel. The wind breathes through it, dry, still. You press your fingers inside. Something moves. Not stone, air, space, a passage. You dig slowly, quietly, until the crack is wide enough. You slip through. Inside, it is dark, cool, still. The air smells like dust and old cloth. You light a small flame, a thin torch. The walls are plain. At first, then, symbols. Not a moon, not Osiris. A 10, hidden in corners. Faint, thin lines beneath scraped stone. You follow them. Then you hear it. A breath, not yours. You stop, turn. A figure stands at the far end of the corridor. Robe, hood, staff. No face visible, but still. Watching, you do not speak. Neither does he. He lifts his hand, points to the wall, then to you. Then he leaves. No footsteps, just stillness. You are alone again. But the silence has changed. The chamber beyond the corridor is small, carved with care. A mural remains. One final painting. A sun. A man. A temple. And beneath it, eyes, rows of them, open, unblinking. You hold the amulet. It warms, then cools. You understand. The story is not hidden. It is watched, and you were not the first to see it. But maybe you are the first to remember. In ancient Egypt, festivals were more than celebration. They were renewal. The Opet festival in Thebes stretched across days. Processions, prayers, incense, and music filled the streets. Statues of gods were carried from temples to sanctuaries, bridging the world of the divine and the earthly. People danced, priests chanted, offerings were made. The Nile glistened with light and sound, and above it all, Amun returned to his people. After the reign of Akhenaten, such festivals grew louder, brighter, more intense, not just to honor the gods, but to prove they had never left. Temples once shut were opened, names once scraped were rewritten, and anything still bearing Aten's image was burned. Old scrolls, old hymns, even stone. The fire was not for warmth, it was for forgetting. You arrive in Thebes as the sun rises. The city pulses. Smoke drifts above rooftops. Drums echo through stone alleys. People fill the streets. Baskets of lotus flowers. Painted faces. Children with gold paper crowns. The Opet festival has begun. You drift through the crowd like breath through linen. You pass men carrying incense burners and women throwing rose petals over statues. The statue of Amun, tall, black, powerful, moves past you, carried by 40 shoulders. You bow your head. You say nothing. But the amulet beneath your chest stirs. At night, torches blaze. The air smells of oil and myrrh. Priests gather near the southern gate. They chant in low tones, then louder, then with rhythm. A large fire is lit. You stand at the edge of the square, in shadow. Someone brings out a bundle, tied in cloth, painted symbols on the wrapping. You recognize one. Akhetaten. The crowd doesn't notice, but you do. The bundle is thrown into the fire. The cloth catches first, then parchment, then wood. You hear the hiss of old ink, the crack of painted plaster, the roar of memory turning to ash. A priest throws in another scroll, then a carving, then more. You step back. The fire is not warm. It is hungry. You turn to leave, but someone blocks your path. A young woman, face painted, eyes sharp. Why don't you celebrate? You shake your head. Did you lose something in the flames? She asks. You say nothing. She studies your silence, then steps aside. Some things burn slower than others. Later, you walk by the river. Ash floats in the current. Tiny flecks of what was. The amulet is cold now, but in your mind, you still see the eyes beneath the mural. Watching. You wonder how much they've seen, and how long they've waited for someone not to look away. You say a prayer, but not to Amun, and not out loud. Just a whisper in the dark. You return to where it all began. The road is quieter now. Your feet know the path. The wind carries the same dust, but the air feels different. You are older, not in years, but in weight. The journey behind you is long, not in distance, but in depth. You have seen cities rise from sand, heard gods called by forgotten names, walked through fire and silence and shadow, and now, home. You arrive at the bend in the river where reeds still whisper, where birds still skim the surface, where the air smells like early mornings and wet stone. The village is smaller than you remember, or perhaps you have grown. The children play the same games, the women bake the same bread, but the stories in their eyes are not the ones you now carry. Faces have changed, or maybe it's only yours. You don't stop to speak. You don't unpack. You walk past the homes, through the fields, to the river's edge. You sit. The sun is low. The water glows. You close your eyes and breathe in the river. It smells like memory, like roots, like something more permanent than stone. You reach beneath your tunic. You hold the amulet one last time. It is warm, but quiet. No whispers, no pull, just presence. You look at it, not as a relic, not as a burden, but as a thread, one that connected you to something too vast for words. You trace the lines with your thumb, the sun, the arms, the hands. You remember each moment it changed you, the silence of the ruins, the eyes in the stone, the flame that ate the forgotten. You remember the old man who said, "Stone remembers." But so do you. You rise slowly, step forward, and place the amulet in the reeds, not buried, not hidden, just left. The current takes it slowly, not as a loss, but as a return. The water closes over it, and you feel no pain, just space. You sit again. The shape fades beneath the water. The ripples fade. The moment fades, but something remains. Not in your hand, not in the river, but in you. You have carried memory. You have carried silence. You have carried danger and wonder and questions with no safe answers. And now you carry something else, understanding, that not all stories are meant to be told. Some are only meant to be remembered, and some are only meant to change the one who hears them. You rise. You do not look back. The Nile flows behind you, still, unchanging, alive, and you, for the first time, feel the same. Not every story was written in ink. Some were carved into stone. Some were passed in whispers. Some lived only in silence. Ancient Egypt held thousands of names. Some sung loudly in temples. Some buried with care in tombs. And some erased. The reign of Akhetaten was not just a chapter. It was a break in the rhythm, a sharp breath where the music faltered, and the reaction was swift. Temples were rededicated. Scribes scratched out what they had once praised. Families denied their connection to the heretic king. Aten, once the only god, was reduced to a forbidden symbol, a memory too dangerous to keep. But time is not a loyal servant. It does not always obey forgetting. Some names return. Some stories surface, not as noise, but as breath. And those who remember, even if only one, carry something sacred. Not because they change history, but because they refuse to let it disappear. You live quietly now, not far from the river, not far from the place it all began. You rise with the sun. You sleep with the stars. You eat what the land offers and speak when there is something to say. But most of the time, you listen. Children run past your home. Some are curious. Some are cautious. You greet them gently. You tell simple stories. Not the big ones. Not yet. But one child stays longer than the rest. She asks questions. She watches you when you think she isn't. And one evening, as the sun melts into the water, she asks, "What did you see out there?" You pause. Not because you don't know what to say, but because you know what it means to say it. You answer slowly. "I saw silence, and names that were never meant to be spoken again, and hands that once carved gods into stone, and eyes that watched long after the fires went out." She doesn't understand. Not yet. But she listens. And that is enough. The seasons pass. The river rises and falls. You mark time not by calendars, but by light, by sound, by what the birds know before the sky tells it. Sometimes you visit the ruins again. Not far. Still there. Still broken. You walk where you once crawled. You stand where you once knelt. The mural in your mind is brighter than the one on the wall. But it doesn't matter. The story is still alive. You carry it in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you say nothing when others would explain. Years pass. You are older now. You walk slower. You rest more. But your eyes, they see more clearly than ever. And when the girl, now a young woman, returns with a question in her hands, you give her the last thing you have. Not the amulet, not a scroll, not a relic, but the truth. Some stories are too fragile to be kept in books. They are kept in people. She nods, and you know she understands. One day, without warning, you feel it. Not pain, not sadness, just a shift. Like a boat being untied, like wind changing direction. You lie down, you close your eyes, you breathe, and in that breath, you feel the river again. The fire, the stone, the eyes. They are not gone. They are only still. And so are you. When your home is found, you are resting, peaceful. In your hands, a small stone, smooth from years of holding, not marked, not glowing, just warm. They bury you near the river. No statue, no scroll. But sometimes, a child walks past and remembers something they can't explain. A story they never read. A god with arms like the sun. A silence that once felt like love. Some stories are erased from stone, but never from the soul. And now you know what they tried to erase, what still breathes between the stones, what never needed a voice, only someone to remember. If you're still awake, thank you for walking with us. If you're asleep, may your dreams carry you deeper into forgotten places, where silence tells the truest stories. And if you wish to return to more histories left in shadow, to more truths beneath the dust, subscribe, not for noise, but for stillness with meaning.